Scorpio. These birth dates have the most intense tempers. Are you one? There's something about Scorpio that people notice almost immediately. The intensity, the silence, the stare, the way a Scorpio can sit quietly while everyone else is talking, and somehow still feel like the most powerful person in the room. But there's another side of Scorpio that people don't always understand. The temper. And no, we're not talking about someone who simply gets annoyed over little things. We're talking about a deeper kind of emotional intensity. The kind that can stay calm for a long time, until one final moment changes everything. And according to astrology, certain Scorpio birth dates may carry this intensity even more strongly than others. So if you're a Scorpio, or someone close to you is, pay attention. Because today, we're revealing the Scorpio birth dates associated with some of the most intense emotional reactions, powerful tempers, and unforgettable personalities. And there's a reason these Scorpios can be so difficult to provoke. But once they've had enough, almost impossible to stop. So ask yourself one question before we begin. Is your birthday on the list? Because if it is, you may finally understand something about yourself that you've never been able to explain. The Scorpio temper is different. Scorpio is traditionally associated with deep emotions, intensity, transformation, and strong personal boundaries. That means their anger usually isn't random. A Scorpio can tolerate a lot. They can ignore things. They can forgive. They can remain silent. They can walk away from an argument. And sometimes, they can even pretend that something didn't bother them. But that doesn't necessarily mean they forgot. They remember. They observe. They process. And they keep everything inside until they understand exactly what happened. That's why the Scorpio temper can surprise people. Someone might think, Scorpio is fine, but Scorpio may be thinking, I noticed everything. And that difference is where the intensity begins. Because when Scorpio finally reacts, the reaction may have been building for much longer than anyone realized. Birth date group 1. Let's start with one of the most emotionally intense Scorpio groups. October 23rd to October 27th. If you were born around these dates, you may have a particularly strong reaction to disrespect, dishonesty, and emotional betrayal. You may not explode immediately. In fact, you might do the opposite. You become quiet, and that silence can be more powerful than shouting. You start watching. You start analyzing. You start connecting details. And when someone asks, "Why are you so quiet?" you may simply say, "I'm fine." But deep down, you already know something has changed. This is the kind of Scorpio who can tolerate a mistake, but struggles to tolerate repeated disrespect. And there's an important difference. You can forgive someone for being human. But if someone intentionally crosses your boundaries again and again, your patience may eventually disappear. And when it does, you may not even recognize the version of yourself that comes out. Not because you want conflict, but because you've reached your limit. And when Scorpio reaches their limit, they don't always argue. Sometimes they simply remove themselves. No dramatic announcement, no long explanation, just distance. And that can hurt more than anger. Because once a Scorpio decides that someone is no longer worthy of their energy, getting that energy back can be extremely difficult. Birth date group 2. Now let's move deeper. October 28th to November 1st. This group can be especially intense when emotions become personal. These Scorpios may have a powerful sense of loyalty. And loyalty is everything. If you love them, they can love you deeply. If they trust you, they may defend you when nobody else does. If they consider you family, they can stand beside you through incredibly difficult situations. But that loyalty comes with a boundary. Don't abuse it, because the same Scorpio who would fight for you may completely detach from you if they feel betrayed. And betrayal can be one of the biggest triggers for Scorpio energy. Not because Scorpio expects perfection, but because Scorpio expects honesty. Tell them the truth, even if the truth hurts. Because a painful truth can be easier for Scorpio to accept than a beautiful lie. And if someone lies repeatedly, that can change everything. The anger may not appear immediately. Instead, something else happens. The trust begins to disappear. And once trust disappears, the relationship may never feel the same again. Birth date group 3. Now we reach another powerful group. November 2nd to November 6th. These Scorpio birthdays can represent an especially strong combination of emotional depth and determination. And here's what makes this group interesting. They may not only get angry when someone hurts them, they can also become intensely frustrated when they feel powerless. When they know they can do something, but circumstances keep blocking them. That frustration can build, and Scorpio does not like feeling controlled. They want to make their own decisions. They want to understand what's really happening. They want to know the truth behind the situation. And when somebody tries to manipulate them, that can be a completely different story. Because Scorpio energy is naturally suspicious of anything that feels fake. You can smile at them. You can tell them everything is fine. But if something feels wrong, they may sense it, and once they start investigating, good luck hiding the truth. Birth date group 4. Now we come to a Scorpio group that can be incredibly powerful emotionally. November 7th to November 11th. If you were born around these dates, you may recognize something immediately. You don't necessarily get angry quickly. You get angry deeply. There's a difference. A quick temper burns fast and disappears. A deep Scorpio reaction can stay with you because the emotion is connected to meaning. Why did they do that? Why did they betray me? Why did they disrespect me? Why did I trust them? Why did I ignore the warning signs? Scorpio doesn't just experience an emotion. They analyze it. They dissect it. They try to understand it. And sometimes that makes the emotion even stronger. But there's also a hidden strength here. These Scorpios can turn intense emotions into motivation. Someone doubts them, they work harder. Someone rejects them, they rebuild. Someone underestimates them, they become determined to prove themselves. This is why Scorpio anger isn't always destructive. Sometimes, anger becomes fuel. Birth date group 5. And now, we reach one of the most intense sections. November 12th to November 17th. If your birthday falls here, listen carefully. Because you may have experienced something throughout your life that other people don't always understand. You can appear extremely calm, while experiencing extremely strong emotions internally. People may look at you and think, they don't care. But the truth could be the complete opposite. You care so much that you don't want to react without understanding what you're feeling. And when someone pushes you too far, the emotional switch can flip. Suddenly, The quiet Scorpio becomes direct. The patient Scorpio becomes firm. The forgiving Scorpio becomes distant. And the person who once gave endless chances may give absolutely none. That's why some people misunderstand Scorpio. They only notice the final reaction. They don't see the 100 moments that came before it. They don't see the patience. They don't see the forgiveness. They don't see the warnings. They don't see the internal battle. They only see the explosion. And then they say, "Why is Scorpio so angry?" But Scorpio may be thinking, "You had so many chances. Birth date group 6. And finally, November 18th to November 21st. These birthdays are especially interesting because they sit near the end of Scorpio season. And symbolically, that can represent a Scorpio who has already learned something important. Not every battle deserves your energy. This can create a different kind of intensity. Instead of reacting to everything, you become selective. You start asking, "Is this worth my peace?" And that question can completely change a Scorpio. Because the strongest Scorpio isn't necessarily the one who can win every argument. It may be the one who realizes they don't need to have every argument. Sometimes the ultimate form of power is silence. Sometimes walking away is more powerful than revenge. Sometimes protecting your peace is more important than proving someone wrong. And this is where Scorpio energy can transform. The temper becomes boundaries. The anger becomes determination. The pain becomes wisdom. And the betrayal becomes a lesson. But here's the biggest secret. Now, before you decide that your birth date makes you an angry Scorpio, there's something important to understand. Astrology doesn't mean every person born on the same date will behave exactly the same way. Your personality is influenced by many things: your experiences, your environment, your relationships, your choices, and, in astrology, your broader birth chart. So this isn't about saying, "You were born on this date, therefore you have a bad temper." Not at all. The deeper message is about emotional intensity. Because Scorpio energy isn't simply about anger. It's about depth. And deep people often feel things deeply. Love deeply. Trust deeply. Hurt deeply. Protect deeply. And sometimes, they get angry deeply. That intensity can become a weakness. Or it can become one of your greatest strengths. The choice is yours. Why people fear angry Scorpio. There's another reason Scorpio has such a reputation. It isn't always the volume. It isn't always the words. It's the certainty. When some people become angry, they want everyone to know. They shout. They argue. They demand attention. But Scorpio can become quiet. And when Scorpio becomes quiet after being pushed too far, people who know them may immediately realize something is different. Because Scorpio isn't necessarily looking for attention. They're deciding what happens next. And that's why the Scorpio temper can feel intimidating. It's controlled, focused, and deeply personal. But here's the lesson. You don't have to become destructive just because you feel intensely. Your intensity can become discipline. Your anger can become ambition. Your sensitivity can become intuition. Your pain can become strength. Your past can become wisdom. And your boundaries can become self-respect. If your birthday is on this list, take a moment. Think about your life. How many times have people told you, "You're too intense. You think too much. You take things too seriously. You never forget anything. You're hard to read." Or maybe they've said, You're extremely loyal. You always know when something is wrong. You're stronger than you look. You don't give up. If you've heard some of these things, maybe you're Scorpio. Intensity isn't something you need to eliminate. Maybe you need to learn how to control it. Because there is a huge difference between having a powerful temper and being controlled by your temper. The first can be strength. The second can become a weakness. And the most powerful Scorpio eventually learns the difference. The real power of Scorpio. Your anger isn't necessarily your greatest power. Your ability to transform it is. Someone hurts you. Learn. Someone betrays you. Set a boundary. Someone underestimates you. Let your actions speak. Someone walks away. Don't chase. Someone tries to control you. Choose yourself. Because Scorpio was never meant to live a small emotional life. You feel deeply. You love deeply. You experience life intensely. And when you learn to control that intensity instead of letting it control you, you become extremely difficult to break. That's the real Scorpio power. Not revenge, not rage, not destruction, transformation. You can take the thing that was supposed to destroy you and turn it into the reason you became stronger. And that is what makes Scorpio so fascinating. So, are you one? Now I want you to look at your birthday. Was it one of the dates or date ranges we talked about? If it was, tell me your exact Scorpio birth date in the comments. I want to see which Scorpio birthdays are watching this video. And don't just write, Scorpio. Write the month and day. Because there may be a pattern hidden in the comments that we haven't noticed yet. And if your birthday wasn't mentioned, don't leave yet, because that doesn't mean you're less intense. Your complete birth chart can tell a much bigger story than your sun sign alone. There may be another placement explaining why you feel everything so strongly. Why you don't trust easily. Why betrayal affects you differently. Why you can remain calm for so long. And then suddenly decide, that's enough. Final message. And remember this. Being intense doesn't make you dangerous. Being emotional doesn't make you weak. Having a temper doesn't define who you are. What defines you is what you do with those emotions. Anyone can explode. Real strength is knowing when to walk away. Anyone can seek revenge. Real strength is building a life that no longer needs revenge. Anyone can react. Real strength is choosing your response. So if you're one of these Scorpio birthdays, don't be ashamed of your intensity. Learn it, understand it, control it, use it, because the same fire that can burn everything down can also light the path forward. And maybe, the reason you've always felt different isn't because something is wrong with you. Maybe you were simply never meant to feel life halfway. If you're still watching, you're not here by accident. Go ahead and subscribe. This content is made for you. This is Cosmic Insight Daily. And until the next video, protect your energy. Trust your intuition, and never forget just how powerful you can become when you finally learn to control the storm inside you. Stay mysterious. Stay powerful. Stay Scorpio.